Yo, pair of orphans and retrogrades. Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades, happy Tuesday night. On today's show, the episode that you are currently watching of Rules for Retrogrades, we're going to talk about the IDF, whether it is the rule or the exception to the rule when the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, malign, slander, commit blasphemy, desecrate Christian statues, because when the picture went viral this past weekend of an IDF soldier desecrating a statue of our Lord Jesus Christ, hitting it with a hammer on the head, pulling it down off of a cross, the immediate defense by all of the Zionist types, evangelicals, Trump lovers, in this civil war that I told you about, that's now raging, roiling, was to say that, look, there are bad apples in every bunch. This is no more news than it is news that if you take any 1,000 Christians, there's going to be one or two that are violent or upset or frustrated or looking to take out the hard lives that they've had to live on others. Well, that's just not true. And we're lucky enough to live in the age of the internet when we can double check against such allergic, knee-jerk, militant moderate responses. Let's say that. Militant moderate, normie con, they're militant moderates. And they just say things like that. Oh, that seems like news, but that's not news at all. You know why? There's always a bad apple in every bunch. This IDF soldier, who has gone unnamed, we want to know his name. As America wages this goon's war for him, he's pulling down Jesus statues and hitting the Jesus statue over the head with a hammer, blasphemy to the majority religion, which is Christianity, of the very nation who's helping him. This is altogether typical. And luckily, in the age of the internet, we can see that Cardinal Pizzaballa, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, he would have been the number 3 in the church in the Patriarchy days, medieval church. He says this is common. This isn't atypical. I mean, that's not his exact words, but I can read the letter for you. And he says this is not a standoff, solo, one-off, unique event. It's not a solecism. Here's what he said. In a statement released on April 20th, yesterday, about the profanation of an image of Jesus crucified, Cardinal Pier Pizzaballa wrote, "The Assembly of Catholic Ordinaries of the Holy Land expresses its profound indignation and unreserved condemnation of the desecration of a representation of Jesus crucified by an Israeli soldier in a Lebanese village." Remember, we're supposed to be in a ceasefire. I mean, the ceasefire is over, but Israel started firing on Lebanon during a ceasefire, friends, about 10 days ago. Cardinal Pizzaballa continues, "The act constitutes a grave affront to the Christian faith and adds to other reported incidents of desecration of Christian symbols by IDF soldiers in southern Lebanon." So in this recent wave of violence by Israel in southern Lebanon, it's new, and there's already lots of reported such incidents. It further reveals a disturbing failure in moral and human formation, wherein even the most elementary reverence for the sacred and for the dignity of others has been gravely compromised. The assembly calls for immediate and decisive disciplinary action, a credible process of accountability, and clear assurances that such conduct will neither be tolerated nor repeated. That's the bulky part of the letter. And of course, Netanyahu is saying that they're really outraged. They're really surprised. And of course, the Zionist Israel shills, the MAGA tards, who are the Goyim bootlickers of Israel in America, are so quick to lap it up. Okay, well, they made this all right. They even, can we get this? They even circulated a false pic. One of these Zionist bootlicking Goyim MAGA tards, a false picture created by AI of two Israeli soldiers restoring the cross to its former glory and kneeling in front of it, or something ridiculous like this.
On here, did you bookmark that?
Where was that pic? It's kind of hilarious. I mean, I really think it's hilarious. I'm not gonna lie, because they're desperate. They're so desperate, folks, at this point, for the truth not to out. And that's the funny thing, is that truth outs. The truth will come out. In the 50s, last century, in the 60s, in the 1970s, in the 1980s, in the final decade, the 1990s.
I can show our
it was really, really hard for people to get the whole truth.
I can show our short that we made that has the pictures if you want to see it.
Good. Yeah, that'll help. One sec. So but now it's not. Because of the age of the internet, you can see Cardinal Pizzaballa's letter. You could see the pic on Twitter. It's a one-stop shop, one call, that's all. You go to Twitter, go to X, as the newbies call it. You go to Twitter/X, and you can see all about it. You can see the picture of the IDF soldier desecrating our Lord, which is very typical. It's a very Jewish thing to do. And you can see the number 3 in the church, the number 1 in the church in the Holy Land, decrying it, the desecration of Jesus. And you can see the fake picture that some bootlicker generated on AI in order to make it seem like they're really, really sorry. They took swift action. They made this right, man. They made it right. Oh, here it is, right here. So it's bookmarked if you want to look at that, Steffi.
I have our short. Did you want me to play the short with the pictures on there?
Sure. Yeah, it's that's right. Yeah, the short has the pic. Cool. Let's do it.
Also, reports are in that I think Israel stated that they are going to send the IDF soldiers who are responsible for this to 30 days in prison.
Because of the internet, they're pressured to put the pressure on. Israel knows they have a full-on PR catastrophe on their hands. America, the host country, doing their bidding for the last 65 years, is no longer interested in doing it. And so they have to do this. They have to pretend they think this is a big deal, that this isn't standard. Okay, let's look at a
little like under a minute short that we made. So I'll just play this because it does have the pictures of the fake pictures that were circulated showing the IDF soldier being really very
real
sorry.
Picture of the blasphemy, fake picture of the alleged reparation.
There's one on the screen right now. He's like wiping it up, like the statue. And then the next one is the soldier himself kneeling.
You see on there, subscribe to the channel, by the way, this YouTube channel, because we're trying to hit 100,000 subs. And we got stuck in a real algo prison the last year and a half. So please subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel, you can go to Locals and support Timothy J. Gordon for $13 a month or more. Rules for Retrogrades, Locals, same deal. And we will send you one of these POPs, P-O-P-Ps, Parish Orphan Patron Packs. It's a great time because no one's giving free stuff. It's an actual package in the post, folks. Parish Orphan Patron Pack postal package. Punk. And no one gives actual stuff anymore. So you got a couple magnets, beautiful little handsome fringe magnets of Case for Patriarchy and Catholic Republic, a beautiful button, God Save the Patriarchy. What's the value of this thing? Wearing it on your lapels? You actually have all of the scriptures cited chapter and verse there that say the patriarchy is what we need. Most importantly, you have a beautiful reactionary chic embroidery, hand done, hand autographed by Stephanie Gordon, the one and only. And it's one of a kind. Every single one is different. It's a memento mori, a little bit of a reminder. And you also get a sticker, and it comes in a really cool package. And that's just, it's a really cool thing. So become a subscriber, become a local supporter today. Parish Orphan Patron Pack will be yours as long as you do a monthly support for $13 or more. The monthly is really important, you know, so that we know what we got coming in. Keep the lights on. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, help us break out of algo prison. And the other story here, I mean, so this is a total PR, public relations catastrophe for Israel. An IDF soldier expresses Israel's majority opinion and the Jewish majority opinion by desecrating this statue of our Lord on the cross. He said the anti-Christian quiet part out loud, alienating even the most quixotic, bootlicking citizens of the Christian country across the globe, which does all the heavy lifting for Israel. So they have to pretend they're really sorry. They have to pretend this is a 1 in a million, a big deal. We're going to punish this guy. It's a total catastrophe in terms of optics. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. What's going on in Lebanon? How much desecration have we witnessed? Everything's being leveled in Lebanon now, the same way they did it to the West Bank and Gaza Strip a month, you know, whatever it was, 5 weeks ago. It's just really sad. It's really, really sad. But the other story is that as pressure mounts on the bad actors in Israel, the genocidists like Bibi Netanyahu, pressure also mounts on his defenders on this side of the pond. That is to say, folks who support Israel, the Zionists, they have to say something. You got to give them something to say. And one of those big supporters that might not be a Zionist, but is actually on this side of the conceptual pond, because he's not only American, but he's a Catholic with us, is Bishop Robert Barron. And boy, he was pinched after this past weekend, late last week, I should say, when President Trump is sending Truth Social posts to the effect that he is Jesus, he's better than the Pope. Catholics now have fallen off from President Trump. MAGA is dead. Complete partisan civil war. Right-wingers do not agree about Israel. And he's alienated people as much as Israel has, President Trump, and so have his supporters. And what they have on their hands at this point is pressure for Trump people, MAGA people to repudiate. Look, if you're Catholic, you got to be off board. You can't be supporting Antichrist type stuff, like what's coming out of the president's social media accounts at this point. He's being told by Paula White, he's probably, she's in there because she's a skirt. She looks good to a 80-year-old man. You take what you can get at that point. That's why she's the faith formation pastorette for the White House. She's telling him he's a Messiah. That was part of her Easter message. She's said that before. During Lent, she said he's like the Messiah. Then he starts believing the puffery. When someone follows you around and is telling you you're great, you're more than a man, you're more than a man, you're more than a man, you're half man, half amazing, as Shaquille O'Neal says. You're the truth, capital T, capital T. I'm using all these basketball nicknames. Ball don't lie. You're the truth. You're the savior. You're the one. You're him. You start listening, unless you're really, really wise. And you start seeing it reflected in what that person says or expresses or tweets or writes or whatever about themselves. So for Catholics, like I mentioned my friend Michael Knowles on the show the other day, the pressure for MAGA Catholics who have not fallen out with Trump yet, the pressure to fall out or jump off board, get off the wagon, whatever image suits you, increases. And particularly for goofy, cowardly Bishop Barron. I mean, this man is afraid of his own shadow. This man is petrified of everything. And we've known this for a long time. And Taylor Marshall and I did shows on it in 2018. This man is petrified of his own shadow. That's a long time ago. That's a lot of water under that bridge. And this goofball, he's a bishop, but he's a goofball. He's still petrified of his own shadow. This is what he tweeted, because but one thing this guy likes, I have friends who are body language experts. I've had them on the channel, Brennan and Audra. They're body language experts. And when they go through Bishop Barron's videos, they say, watch it in fast motion, man. He looks like a jack-in-the-box. He has something that they typify as a balanced personality. So if he says something left, he's going to say something right. And this is actually physiologically expressed, physiognomically expressed. So balanced people go back and forth. So if you watch their video on 3X, he just goes back and forth like a jack-in-the-box. They've always said, obviously, you don't have to be a body language expert to know Bishop Barron is one of these people that's afraid of people. People who are afraid of people are balanced people. People who are afraid of taking a stand. There are a lot of these types, Catholic media types, and Bishop Barron is one of them. There are a lot of other popular Catholic media types that are balanced. They'll say this, then they'll say that. Well, Bishop Barron and the balanced type, their whole way of being is oriented toward palliating people and being in a position of respect, of command, of authority, of being with a sort of glitterati, though the Catholics can never be glitterati. Our women aren't allowed to dress the way they dress. You got to be really thin. That's kind of a problem in a lot of Catholic circles. A lot of people get frumpy, get homely. You're living a good life, but not getting in your daily run. So a lot of Catholic women don't look like movie starlets, don't have the figure for that. But even if they did, they're not allowed to show it off because of the rules. We're not allowed to, go around cheating on our husbands and wives the way the glitterati do. We're not allowed to do the things they do at their parties. We don't want to. We're not supposed to act during the sun hours or the after sun hours how they act. So why try to be a glitterati? Why not just be yourself? This is what I'm always saying. Just be yourself. Say the truth, come what may. Don't try to say it extra mean, because we're not supposed to be extra mean. We're supposed to have love in our heart. But that's how it's always been with regard to Bishop Barron. Like, dude, you're not going to be who's really the cool crowd for Catholics anyway? It's a dorky crowd. I know all these people. There's no point in trying to be one of the cool kids when the cool kids, what, the coolest of the chess team? If you like chess, go play chess, but it's not a great looking crowd. You don't really get the fringe benefits that the quarterbacks and the cheerleaders get, because we're not allowed to. There's a price to pay for that stuff, soteriologically. So it's extra doubly stupid to try to be a cool Catholic. Just say what the church teaches, and you'll be okay. Well, Bishop Barron likes rubbing elbows at Mar-a-Lago with Trump and being the bishop to the president or whatever fringe benefits he thinks he's deriving. And so listen to the weak response. He put out this thing against the Pope. The Pope has been talking about just war, and he's not a great Pope. I'm not going to that far to that side either. I'm always just right on top of the truth. This Pope is not based. He's a lefty. He said he's in line with Chicago Archbishop Bernardin and Chicago Archbishop Supich, two of the most leftist evil men in the church in the last 100 years. He says, I fancy myself right in that line, in that triumvirate of Chicago archbishops. My program is the program of Francis. I will be a Pope Francis Part 2. He's not a great anti-Zionist. You know, I've written a letter to his CDF on behalf of Carrie Prejean Bowler. She signed it. I'm doing my part. But he's not based. So you can't say, I side with the Pope over the president on this one because he says, look, Israel's prosecuting a war of aggression, an unjust war. But because he's one of these post-conciliar popes, he's not a good pope. He's not going to be a good pope. It's not going to be a good pontificate. I told you that first. Remember all these dorks, all these trad dorks that knew he was going to be bad, but they were covering it up the first 3 months of his pontificate? I was the only one, along with Anthony Stein and some Beneplenists, that were telling you this is going to be just as bad as Francis. He just doesn't have a mouth on him. That's all Pope Leo XIV is. But on this issue, he and the Vatican Secretary of State and Pizzaballa might actually be sort of right-wing, sort of base, but we don't get ahead of yourself. Because of their pre-existing commitment to pacifism, they're kind of against war, all war. That doesn't mean they're based. So they're against all war, and that's not actually the Catholic position. Catholics can be for just wars. We don't have to just be these peacenik schoolmarms. But that's kind of Leo's position. And I have friends that are like trying to make this really cool. He's really based. He's anti-Semitic. He doesn't like Zion. Dude, he's already given like 3 warnings about how bad anti-Semitism is. So just keep your pants on, guy. Keep your pants on. I'm going to say the truth. I'm not going to overstate it. I'm not going to cover up for President Trump. I'm not going to cover up for the Pope. That's why people come here. That's why you listen to this show, Rules for Retrogrades. But, and I don't really care that President Trump critiqued the Pope so much. I care that he blasphemed our Lord Jesus. But it's not a good time to critique the Pope because the Pope on this one accidentally, like a broken clock, it's right twice a day. The Pope is right and you, President Trump, are wrong. He doesn't like wars because he's a soft man. But in this case, it's a bad war, so it works out. And Trump critiqued the Pope and was mocking him in a way that isn't so presidential, not narrowly tailored to the dignity befitting the office, however you want to put it. And Bishop Barron and other, people I'm closer with have higher expectations from that are Catholic that are around Trump, like my friend Michael Knowles. I've said, look, man, we got to leave his side. I knew he was bad in 2024. Didn't you? But I didn't know it was this bad. Here's what Bishop Barron said, because he doesn't want to leave Trump's side. There's a way past the absurd and deeply divisive war between the president and the Pope, which has been enthusiastically ginned up by the press. So similar narrative to what my friend Michael Knowles was saying. He was saying this is an op. He was calling it an op, which is a way of saying that it's a fake dichotomy, a fake tension between the Pope and the president that's been ginned up by the press. It's not at all. The president said he's Jesus. And then he lied about it and he said, oh, I thought that's what a doctor wears as a first century Judean tunic. Bullshit. I call bullshit. Aren't you guys sick of the bullshit? I thought this is the whole point of the internet, is so we can be real with each other. And how many other shows do you listen to on YouTube, or whether you just listen to them, your Apple podcast, whatever, where people are actually straight talkers? I mean, this show does that. And look, you get hit, you get dinged. People get mad. I don't care. I'll keep doing it. But I thought we were sick of that. Well, not from Bishop Barron. He's saying that this has been ginned up tension by the press. No, President Trump was saying on salad before we started. I had a kale thing. And here you thought that that's a fully heterosexual man. There's like a 1% in every man that eats kale. I'm wondering, is it on my teeth? And then, you thought I'm a straight talker. I didn't even
see any kale in your teeth.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know.
I can't attest to your heterosexualities.
Unblemished record of heterosexuality. It's not ginned up by the press. This guy, President Trump, goes after people. He goes after them hard. You can't camouflage it later. We used to think he was our dirty dog. He's a dirty dog, but he's ours. Not really. Not really. He's a sleazy guy. I'm going to use a term. If you look this term up in like a street dictionary or Webster's or wherever there is one, it will have a picture of President Donald J. Trump's face. Douchebag. He's a douchebag. That's a technical term. Okay. I hate to be overly technical on a Tuesday evening, but that's what this guy is. He is a textbook douchebag. He's rude. He's coarse. He says nasty things about the ladies. He says nasty things about them. And I mean, it's funny. He was funny in 2016. I sometimes have, a quarter of a mind for that, but I don't like the sex stuff. I don't like some old pervert, particularly some Jewish influenced pervert. Then it gets extra pervy. Now the perversion starts looking extra bad. I don't like that stuff anyway, but I like the jokes. I don't mind him making a joke about a guy being a retard, but come on, man. There's no call for saying what he said about the Pope. And there's certainly, sure as fuck, not any call for him saying, I'm being serious now. There is no call for him saying or tweeting or depicting himself as our Lord Jesus Christ. Did I really have to tell you this at the 11th hour here, at the end of the world or whatever it is? He looks like the Antichrist. And on Easter, he says he's going to end a civilization. You got to get off board. He's not a good man. He's not a Christian man. And he hates Catholics. Okay, so Bishop Barron is still going on trying to defend this guy. He goes, as it's indicated in Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2309, to be precise, after laying out the various criteria for determining a just war, proportionality, last resort, declaration by a competent authority, reasonable hope of success, etc., the Catechism points out that the evaluation of these conditions for moral legitimacy belongs to the prudential judgment of those who have responsibility for the common good. The assumption is that the just war principles function, to use the technical term, as heuristic devices designed to guide the practical decision-making of those civil authorities who have to adjudicate matters of war and peace. Now, he busted out the word heuristic. He busted out this A word, adjudicate. So all the midwits and nitwits are really, they're just impressed. Luckily, you guys listen to a podcast by an even swifter, slicker neologist than Bishop Barron. I see through this. I have a bigger vocabulary than him. And I can out-debate him anytime. But Bishop Barron, if you want to debate this just war theory as applied to Israel, Iran, America, anytime, Your Excellency, anytime. Now, of course, you don't. But what he did that was slick here is he said, after laying out the various criteria for determining a just war, and then he says the four criterion according to St. Thomas: proportionality, last resort, declaration by a competent authority, reasonable hope of success. And he glosses over the way that some of these sub-elements have been adumbrated at various times in the past. So sometimes it's not for. Sometimes proportionality means never, never, never waged against innocence. Sometimes that's made explicit. Other times it's just baked into what we mean by proportionality. There can never be an attack on innocence like Hiroshima or Nagasaki. Not just. That destroyed the whole, whatever just cause you thought World War II was, targeting civilians, it's an act of genocide. Horrible, horrible genocide, and it's not justifiable. So some of the perennial philosophers of the Catholic tradition have bothered to externalize that subpart of proportionality. Others, not so much. But proportionality includes that. So this is not a just war. Last resort. This is anything but a last resort. The 2 weeks away from weapons grade uranium enrichment completion has been a lie they've been spinning for 3 decades plus. And it's Bibi Netanyahu. You can go back and see him with the full head of dark hair as a young man saying that Iran was 2 weeks away from weapons grade uranium enrichment. It's nonsense. So it's not a last resort, and it's not proportional. And it's not actually declared by a competent authority either. That's prong 3, because the competent authority is identified in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, baby. That's who has to declare a just war. So whereas the Thomistic tradition never gets too bogged down in details, it just says whatever the rules of the country are, each country, the sovereign authorities of it, whether it's by the one, the few, or the many, the rule therein, it has to be done according to the rules of the sovereign country, the sovereign constitution. And it's not, because in America, a war has to be declared by the Congress. Article 1, Section 8. Do I need to start reading from my pocket constitution like a Tea Party dork? Like a Tea Party narc? So it doesn't pass that one either. Reasonable hope of success, I guess. I'll give you that one, Zionist. But this wasn't even my main critique. What Bishop Barron did that's also really slick, that fooled, evidently, all the nitwits and midwits, is he said, he implied that what's indicated in Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2309, the Catechism points out the evaluation of these conditions for moral legitimacy belongs to the prudential judgment of those who have responsibility for the common good. This means that the Roman Catholic Church, the Holy See, will not use what we call prior restraint, where the church isn't going to come around and try to restrain all 190 countries in the world that might or might not be using a just war, but claiming a just war is afoot. You see? So they're just saying, as a matter of first impression, each of these countries have to decide for themselves, like all prudential judgments. For all of the individual households in the United States of America, the father of the household, the ruler of the household, has to decide whether or not to vaccinate his children, has to decide whether or not to send his kids to Catholic school, has to decide what liturgy to attend. Now, that does not imply that just because it's a matter of first impression for the competent ruling authority of whatever layer of society we're talking about, the household, or in this case, the whole country, the United States, that doesn't imply some sort of Bishop Barron relativism, which means that anything they decide, any old thing they decide, you and your household, maybe you don't want to take your kids to church. Well, you decide that. Yeah, that's a prudential judgment. You're going to pay for that. That's a wrong choice. It's a prudential judgment call. Well, I'm this, I'm that. I'm not Novus Ordo. I'm SSPV. I'm SSPX. We think it's better to not go to Mass at all on Sunday. Okay, well, that's up to you, man. There will be no prior restraint, no Catholic authority that comes into your household and says, you need to bring your kids to household, to even the Novus Ordo. That's, I think, the proper interpretation. If you don't have a TLM by you got to get to the Novus Ordo. I mean, as I've always said that. But the Catholic Church isn't going to enforce that. It's a prudential judgment on the ruler. And if he judges wrongly, he'll pay for it. It's not relativism. It doesn't mean any old thing he decides goes. It just means no one's going to force him. That's what Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2309 means. We're not relativists. I mean, Bishop Barron is. Bishop Barron is a universalist. Bishop Barron has long defended Origenism, quasi-Origenism. Everybody goes to hell, so we can reasonably pray. Bishop Barron has long thought that Jesus is not the sole path to heaven. He's the privileged path. Of course, he's a relativist. That's not what phronesis in Greek, prudentia in Latin means. Phronesis / prudentia in the Greek and Latin traditions, as taught by the perennial philosophy, that is the practical intellect at work. And no authority on earth, a global authority, the Vatican, no one else can step in and make these decisions for each of us. That doesn't imply that there's not a wrong or a right that will be parsed out maybe at the end of time. Okay, so his little letter here posted on Twitter continues. The role of the church, does Bishop Barron's, the role of the church, therefore, is to call for peace and to urge that any conflict be strictly circumscribed by the moral constraints of just war criteria. Wrong again. Bishop Barron is wrong again. The church does not have to call for peace. This is his feminized, schoolmarm, chatty Cathy side. The role of the church isn't to call for peace. Maybe the role of the church is to call for crusades, the way the church once did. Glorious, glorious crusades. Those were all just war, with moments of exception. Maybe the fourth, maybe part of the second crusade were not just wars, but all the other ones were just wars. The role of the church is not univocally to call for peace. Bishop Barron, what are you talking about? The church might be the one that's like, we've had too much peace. Peace can be a sin. To lack righteous anger. A moral failing in the form of discomfiture, of lacking righteous enforcement. The role of the church is not always to call for peace. This is that post-conciliar girl / woman feminization of the Catholic worldview, and it's an ape of the church. It's an ape of Catholic. It's in a skin suit. The way so many of these effeminate queen bishops, like Bishop Barron, would have you believe the Roman Catholic Church teaches. That's not it. The role of the church is not to call for peace. That's what President Trump thinks. That's what all of the ninnies think, and they're quite ably caricaturing the Pope Leo, or any Catholic Pope, as just being the schoolmarm, the prefect, who does her duty once a week and watches recess, the playground monitor. Be nice, use your manners. Sometimes the church is like, look, bitches, look, we're taking back the holy sites. These are ours, Muslims. These are ours, Jews. These are ours, and we will split them with the Orthodox Christians, who are actually most affected by your guys' caveman bullshit, your caveman idiocy, Jews and Muslims. No, we're not bringing peace, but a sword. We're bringing a sword. That's the role of the church. It's not to always call for peace. This is what every know-nothing do-goodnik out there thinks Roman Catholic Church is, and that's because Bishop Barron is a toothless, feckless Vatican II guy. I'm sick of this guy. I am sick of this guy. He says it's not the role of the church to evaluate whether a particular war is just or unjust. This is absolutely embarrassingly wrong. I'll debate Bishop Barron any day, any facet of the just war constraints, any facet of Thomism applied to geopolitics anytime, on the internet, in person. I'll do it anytime. This is just wrong. It's not the role of the church to evaluate whether a particular war is just or unjust. Yes, it is. It's not the role of the church to prosecute it, right? There are no prior restraints. The church isn't going to step in and make all 190 or whatever, 180 countries in the world get along. But the church is absolutely the guarantor of the just war tradition, and to say, you're meeting the mark, you're not.
Sorry to break in here, but there is somebody did an interesting tweet on that point, just the Pope declaring just or unjust war. He said, on top of everything else, Bishop Barron here seems to flatly deny the explicit teaching on one of Innocent III's major decretals, Novit Ille, which says the Pope can not only judge unjust wars, but compel restitution on their account. And then in parentheses, before 1918, it was part of the Code of Canon Law.
Oh, beautiful. All right. Would you retweet that? That's excellent.
And he has the screenshots.
That's Pope Innocent the
Third.
Okay. So base Pope Innocent III, the same one that he did a lot that we've talked about over the last 3 months. I'm forgetting exactly what. All right, retweet that. So yes, I knew absolutely in the perennial philosophy, tradition, and even the magisterial acts of the Pope, that is just complete bullshit. I mean, Barron goes from being slippery like an eel, stepping between the raindrops, using tricksy, feckless Vatican II unctuous language to avoid saying what's true. And then at this point, maybe he's ignorant of it. He's just saying it the opposite of the truth. It's not the role of the church to evaluate whether a particular war is just or unjust. What the heck does the church do? That appraisal belongs to the civil authorities, he writes, who, one presumes, have requisite knowledge of the conditions on the ground. That is absolutely wrong. The church is the canon. Here's just war. We are the ultimate guardians, guarantors of the just war tradition. They have the facts on the ground. The countries act on their own best behalf. A lot of the countries overstep the mark, particularly those in league with Israel or America, the bad guys, unfortunately. But they are always subject to the measuring stick of the just war tradition, which is ever transparent. You can't blow up girls' schools, man. That's not collateral damage. You can't blow up apartment buildings. You can't target civilians. Is this not registering for any of you cats out there? Unbelievable. That appraisal belongs to the church, not to the civil authorities, who one presumes have requisite knowledge of conditions on the ground. This is the most asinine thing I have heard in 2026. So all 180, 190 countries in the world are their own authorities. The moral ones, the immoral ones, the ones in between. They all get to decide on their own behalf, not they're acting justly, whether or not they're prosecuting a war of conquest, and they get to have the final word. What I did was right. Same thing. Why don't we apply this to persons, rapists? It was a just rape. It was a just murder. Because individual men are the ones that are actually the agents of the practical intellect, the agents, the users of their prudentia phronesis.
Well, isn't that the case too? That they do, like various countries do have laws, like what constitutes a rape. And some of them are, a bit more stringent than others. And I'm sure like guys like Bishop Barron would come out and be like, a rape is a rape. Like, you can't just, countries don't have a right to determine what this is and what this isn't. It's just justice or not.
I don't think he would. I think he's
with the rape, with like when women are
relativist. I think he's been steeped in this spirit of Vatican II for so long that he just lost his mind, I guess. I don't know. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So he asks, is the war in question truly the last resort? Is there really a balance between the good to be attained and the destruction caused by the war? Are combatants and non-combatants being properly distinguished in the waging of the conflict? Do the belligerents have the right intention? That's not one of the prongs at all. Is there a reasonable hope of success? The posing of these questions, indeed, you can tell when someone sticks an Indeed in their little white paper, you know they really think they've gathered a head of steam. The posing of those questions, indeed, the insistence upon their moral relevance, belongs rightly to the church, but the answering of them belongs to the civil authorities. Do you know how dumb this is? I thought Bishop Barron was a little bit smart. I always knew he was the kind of corny midwit that would say things like Indeed in his white papers. You know, it's always leave it to an IQ like 112, 115. To, you know, you write a little sentence, you're feeling good about this paragraph, and you're like, I'm going to stick an Indeed in there. I'm going to go. I always knew he was, you know, IQ 116, but now I'm thinking IQ 96. Let me reread this sentence. The posing of those questions, the questions concerning the instantiations of the prongs of just war. Indeed, the insistence upon their moral relevance belongs rightly to the church, but the answering of them belongs to the civil authority. What do you mean? So the church literally sits around and poses questions that it has neither the intellectual capacity, the intellectual tradition, the boots on the ground to answer? So the church can pose a question like, is it moral? Indeed. Is it good to commit homicide in this instance? Yes, that's the church's to ask, but it's up to the murderer to answer. This is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. And still, this is how the internet works. It works a little bit like gate-kept television, network television. Bishop Barron has a huge platform. No matter how dumb what he just said is, no matter how much heat you're going to give him right now, you will go crawling back to him. This is my problem. This is my big problem with YouTube consumers. The big channels are just there. You'll get mad at so-and-so for joining up with so-and-so, even though he claimed not to be a Zionist. You get mad at this person give it a week, and the big channels just preponderate. It's very frustrating. Everyone was so mad at Bishop Barron after the Ben Shapiro thing. This is like 7 years ago. And I was like, yes, they finally get it. He's such a weasel. And then you just forget, well, it's on TV. It's the same shit that justified probably people watching the O'Reilly Factor. This guy's a blowhard. He's retarded. Bill O'Reilly has got to have like a sub-Saharan average IQ. We're talking 68. I mean, Bill O'Reilly's one of the dumbest human beings that I've ever heard talk.
Is he the guy like you're in the spin zone?
You're in the no spin zone.
Oh.
I mean, dumbass boomer, right? And people will make fun of him. But then I would notice around 05, 08, they're watching him. You know, why? They're like, well, it's the only thing on when I'm eating my num-nums. I eat my dinner, I like to watch TV. So I watch Bill O'Reilly. That's what you guys are with Bishop Barron, man. You'll talk all this ish. You'll act morally outraged, but you'll turn him back on. You'll wind your way. It's like a woman that always winds up going back to her abusive relationships. And you're like, come on, you're done. She's like, no, this is it. I'm my own woman. Never knew a girl like this in college. You know, I'm done. I'm done with him. He's a sleaze bag. You're like, I'm sure. I know that. But I didn't date him for 2 years. You know, I know he dealt drugs out of his parents' Tahoe in senior year of high school. You're the one that dated him for 2 years. And then he like beat you up in college or whatever. Freshman year in the frat house. Whatever it is, I didn't have to date him to know. I knew this guy was a douche the second I met him. You're the one that dated him. You're the one that's going to go back to him. Yeah, it sounds like it's my trauma or something. Yeah, like I just knew too many bimbos that went back to their semi-abusive, just jerky boyfriends in college. And you're like, okay, man, now you're talking like me. You're talking like, it's fun to talk like Tim for a day. It's fun to talk like a guy that's got nothing to lose for a day or maybe a week. But at the end of the weekend, everybody's like, oh, I want to turn Bishop Barron back on. I want to get in that no spin zone, man. What am I going to watch shows with spin? I got to watch some O'Reilly. And I would just always be disgusted. You're going to watch Bishop Barron, no matter how dumb the stuff he says is. Final paragraph, he writes, the Pope has said on numerous occasions that he is not a politician and that his role is not the determination of any nation's foreign policy. Well, duh. That doesn't mean that the church is not the guarantor of the natural law tradition. With the perennial philosophy, the common doctor, moral philosophy, moral theology, this double branch of ethics ruled over for 2,000 years by the Roman Catholic Church, moral philosophy, moral theology. Because we don't have like a situation room in the White House? Yes, we don't. That means we don't have the right to weigh in or to be consulted as the experts? That's nonsense. Explicitly contradicts what Pope Innocent III was saying in that passage you read earlier. He says, but he has just as clearly said, Pope Leo XIV, that he will continue to speak for peace and moral constraint. In making both of these claims, he is operating perfectly within the framework of paragraph 2309 of the Catechism. He's not. I showed you. It's so obvious, and I have to spend my time showing you how wrong he is. If we understand that the Pope and the President have qualitatively different roles to play, yes, they do, in the determination of moral action in regard to war, we can, I hope, extricate ourselves from the completely unhelpful narrative of Pope versus President. This is pure cope. And 5.1 thousand dolts out there like this. Stultifyingly stupid crap. It's stultifyingly stupid. So he's wrong in at least two ways. A ruler's obviously unjust war, like this one, is a prudential judgment that the church can and should judge, number one. Number two, the church need not call for peace if a just war is being waged. And Bishop Barron just talks like Joe Rogan, who assumes popes always have to call for peace, like a schoolmarm. Probably the way President Trump, someone as retarded as President Donald J. Trump, believes it. I can't deal with it, guys. I'm losing it. How much dumbassery is out there? It's unbelievable. I can't believe how much people go for. All right, so I think that's it. I mean, so you got the IDF blaspheming, liars out there covering for the Trump Zionist bootlicker Goyim, making up AI images that would indicate that this guy's so sorry. He fixed that statue and now he's kneeling in front of it. No, he's not. And now you have Israel pretending they're bothered about it, even though it's completely, according to Cardinal Pizzaballa, typical that Israelis treat Christian sacred statues and icons this way. So sick it makes me sneeze.
Sick to my nose.
Sick at my stomach.
Super chats. Would you like to get to those?
All right, let's do super chats. These better be good.
Tammy and Randall say thank you, Tim and Steph. That was a good one. Eric A. Al-Harb says, hey, you don't need to bash your hierarch so much.
Next.
Terrence Medler says, a serious question. If you hold to being Roman Catholic, how can you argue against Vatican I or II at all and hold to the identity of being Roman Catholic? Those councils are follow-throughs of the Roman identity since papism.
Okay, so I think we're done. What do you want? What can you reread that one? That is just
you don't argue against Vatican I or II. I think he's confusing
I'm not arguing against Vatican I.
He's confusing you with some of the other tratty guys, I think. But he said
I'm not arguing against Vatican I or Vatican II.
If you hold to being Roman Catholic, how can you argue against Vatican I or II at all and hold the identity of being Roman Catholic?
You can't. You have to have the proper interpretation of Vatican I and Vatican II. I've told you very clearly multiple times that the Bishop Gasser intervention, which Pio IX, the abiding pope at Vatican I, required every voting bishop or cardinal to read, and he said, this is the heuristic. There's the Bishop Barron term for you. This is the heuristic and the hermeneutic, both a teaching aid and an interpretive aid, that every voting prelate has to read the Gasser intervention to understand papal minimalism is what Pastor Eternus means. So papal minimalism is and has always been the understanding of the Roman Catholic Church, in between the heresies of papal maximalism or ultramontanism and conciliarism on the one hand. And there were both of those extremes at Vatican I, but they kind of shifted a little bit and made the abiding middle way just a slightly lesser form of papal maximalism, and that's really wrong. Papal minimalism, not so minimalistic as conciliarism, is the truth of those documents. Vatican II, obviously we don't have time for a whole show on Vatican II, but I've shown how textualist read of the documents, there's some touch and go, narrow miss moments, but they are all technically free of error. Nostra Aetate is the worst one, but it technically is free of error. Are the Jews our older brothers in the faith? Yes. That's actually a very old understanding, medieval understanding, anti-Semitic understanding, which is why I like it, of the Jews. Medieval popes said, yes, they are. They relate to us the way younger brothers relate to their older brothers, specifically the older brothers like Cain, wicked elder brother who spoiled his inheritance. Esau, who spoiled his inheritance, wicked older twin, technically older brother, who spoiled his inheritance by being a jerk. This is the Jews. They are the older brothers in the faith. Next. So that's it. I'm not trying to be like saucy guy, but you know, you're not going to catch me out on something as basic as Vatican I or II. They are correct. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
You had a bike accident today. It's been a rough day.
Yeah, I got nailed on the bike.
Our kids just went flying. You had the baby on the 2-year-old on the back of the bike, and the 7-year-old was like going down a hill on her scooter and was like going out of control. So what was it? You had to like carry the 7-year-old with one arm, steer with the other. Bike.
Yeah, Meerkat. Well, they're nearly 4 and 6, by the way, but
yeah, sorry.
Details being what they are.
I have 8 children.
Meerkat will go down. Well, it's too hard to explain. I'll go down a hill. I'm riding the bike. I have the 4-year-old on the back on a safety seat. Meerkat rides her little scooter, and I hold her arm as we go down hills. She got bad speed wobble 2/3 of the way down the hill. She jumped, abandoned the scooter going ungodly fast. Then I realized I was holding her arm over the handlebar, trying to steer, going still ungodly fast. We leveled out, luckily. I steered off the road onto the grass, and then I kind of abandoned. I was able to do that and kind of set her in the grass. It was still a terrible, terrible, terrible accident. And we're all lucky to have escaped with our lives, frankly.
The other kids come running into the house. Mom, it's been a horrible accident. I thought something. It was wild.
It was bad.
It was bad. Skinned knees everywhere. Okay.
Oh yeah, I got. Look at that bad boy. Can you see that?
Yeah.
That thing is fresh, popping fresh.
Oh boy, I'm sorry.
Huge. I don't even know what happened. The girls.
One of the girls said you went over the handlebars.
I think I flew over the handlebars. Little Meerkat, the one on that got the speed wobble on her scooter. She got the worst of it though. She was worse for the wear. Now the little 3.5-year-old in the safety seat crashed on the bike, but she was fine. Still a terrible thing. Terrible, dangerous.
Just wanted to take your kids out for a nice bike ride, and it ended in tragedy.
I'll never forget. I had a very tall friend once in college, still friends with him. But he was just saying he was riding around his bicycle in New Orleans because he went to college in New Orleans. Oh. And he bought this bike on the internet. And, you know, he's a tall guy. He's like 6'6". And he said the handlebars came off. He was just riding toward a curb like a kind of, I guess, a unicycle with 2 wheels. and he hit it and it exploded he was like 6'6", so it just made the whole image.
The image, it's like, you know, like Donkey Kong in his like racing car in like Mario Kart. You know, he's like just spilling out of the bike. Oh my gosh.
If you don't laugh, you cry. So
next super chat. Bishop Barron is becoming more embarrassing than Supich and McElroy. At least they aren't saying the church can't make moral judgments.
Yeah, the lefties at least hate Israel. It's these center-right goons in America and in the church. It's a unique, weird American quasi-dispensational, dispensationalist adjacent, goofy, evangelical thing. No one else in the world, all the European cardinals are like, Israel's evil. Even the lefties, even the lefty politicians are like, Israel's evil. America's got this goofy new political tradition, young political tradition of dispensationalist Zionism that these kooky evangelicals cooked up with their Schofield study Bibles at the beginning of the 20th century. And they're just brainwashed. And even a lot of, you get like James Lindsay and cornballs like that on Twitter trying to say, if you're right wing, you love Israel. That has nothing to do with right or left wing. There's nothing to do with right or left wing. Because a lot of leftists and a lot of dissident right wingers happen to hate Israel because they're evil. That's just that doesn't mean that we dissident right wingers are teaming up with the left. That just means the left. Even a broken clock's right twice a day. Parolin and Pope Leo the 14th and even guys like Tobin and Supich and what's the old Cardinal McElroy from San Diego. Those guys, the broken clocks, they're due to be right twice a day. Okay, Israel is not a left-right issue. It's are you an idiot issue or not? If you support the most Christ and Christian hating country in the world, Israel, then you're an idiot. That's not a left-right issue. And by the way, Israel is the most anti-Christian country in the world. And by the way, many of the Sharia law countries surrounding Israel have as a capital offense saying Talmudic things about Jesus and Mary. So if you say the awful things about Mary that Jews typically say, or Jesus, that he's a false prophet, not a virgin birth, they say Mary was a harlot hairdresser, cheated on her husband. In Sharia law countries, you will go to the death penalty. For in Islam, Mary is the holiest woman on earth, perpetually virgin, not just before she had Jesus, but after, is the common Islamic belief. And she's the holiest woman on earth. Jesus is actually the Messiah for a Muslim. I'm not saying they get it all right. They get a lot wrong. Jesus is actually the Messiah. He's the second holiest prophet. He's one of the holiest men on earth ever to walk the planet. They just don't believe he's God. I'm not saying that's cool. That's not cool. I'm not down with that. But at least they're not these mouthy, vile, blasphemous Israelis. They just hate Jesus. They believe he's a common street criminal who deserved what he got. Isn't that what Ben Shapiro said 8 years ago? That's what Jews believe. Burning in excrement in hell. That's what Jews believe about Jesus, and that Mary was a harlot hairdresser. That's a Jewish belief. Muslim belief about them is much more respectful. Still not right. Jesus is the God man. You got to get hip to that or you're screwed. But a lot of Muslims came into the Roman Catholic faith because of their love for Mary. There's a book called Tribes with Flags. Very good book that explains why so many Muslims convert, because they already love the Virgin Mary. Like Our Lady of Zaytun, Egypt, converted millions of Muslim men because they love Mary. They already know she's the holiest woman on earth.
We were talking about this the other day, just like if you think about like the Ark of the Covenant, you know, that held the 10 Commandments. If you would touch that, you would like burn, you know, like God would like strike down people who even touched that. Think about people disrespecting Our Lady, you know, the womb that held Christ. It's like if the Ark of the Covenant is like that, God's that protective of that, just holding the law. Imagine the woman who actually held Jesus in her womb. And then you have Protestants and Jews who are doing everything in their power to say disrespectful things about her. It's like, oh, gosh, I pray for those people.
Yep. It's going to be hot. It's going to be a hot day.
Terrence followed up his earlier question about Vatican I and II, and he said, okay, so you're asserting that modern clergy are abusing those councils' terminology. I'm just trying to understand what you think on the subject.
Yeah. I mean, abusing, I'm not saying that Vatican II was executed in good faith. I'm saying, rather, that it was executed in bad faith, and the bad faith actors before and during the council knew, as Skilabix said, how they would stretch out that Laffy Taffy even more after the council. They kind of knew what they were doing. The Ronerites controlled the council, but they did know, they did acknowledge that they had to write it in a technically sound way in order to persuade all the 4,500 to 5,500 prelates whose signatures they had to procure. It was a constitutional ratification convention. They had to write it soundly enough that they would have to stretch it afterwards. And that's what they did. So they wrote it soundly enough. There's no facial, prima facie heresy, heterodoxy in there. There's some touch and go moments, but ultimately a textualist believes that what got ratified was the original public meaning of the words, not the private intent of some Wittgensteinian secret language, esoteric language. That's not what was ratified, because would they have ratified that? All the 5,000 centrists? Nay, they would not have. Okay. So yes, it's some combination of what you're saying here. Abuse and ill intent. And that's good enough for tonight. But I mean, the real thing is, if you want to punish Bishop Barron, don't just bitch about it. Don't watch his show. I mean, he's going to have huge numbers in tomorrow or whenever he goes live next or whatever he does. He releases shows. He doesn't stream live. But if you want to punish him, don't watch his show. If you don't like normies who always play the center, don't watch their show. People care about whether or not you watch their show. I can tell you as a content maker, I never let it skew what I'm going to say. I'm going to say this is going to be really unpopular. People are going to hate it. But I do care. Everyone who does a show wants people watching it. That's just a secret. Like Ben Wade says in 310 to Yuma, the secret of human heart. Pretty much everyone wants to live. Everyone wants to survive. Everyone who makes content wants it to be viewed. Now, some ballers like us, hard pipe-hitting ballers, are like, yeah, well, even if it means less people will watch, I got to say the truth here. But anyway, that's how you should punish the Bishop Barons of the world. Okay, let's get out of here. Are we done with Super Chats? We're coming off of that hard week of stomach bug that the family has. Stomach bug one week and then big bike crash the next. We're going to get back to locals only shows. We'll do that next time, though. It's already late, and we'll deal with this later. God love you all. Pray for peace in the Middle East, not because we're peaceniks, but because this ain't the right war. God bless.